YouTube, it's your boy Killer Cam, back with another reaction. If you have not been tuned in, I've been doing reactions on this channel, only about certain stuff. And this one, I've been doing a series about them rebuilding this Demon 170. I think this is the last video. We probably gonna see it run today. We should. Let's get right into it.
This is my brand new and also very pink Demon 170, though there is just a small catch. I bought this Demon 170 after it was stolen out of Detroit, Michigan with only 61 miles on it. And while the engine was minty fresh, the chassis, it had, well, seen better days. So we picked up yet another stolen Challenger chassis, painted it Panther pink, and we're left with the perfect blank canvas to build a new Demon from scratch. We got the car, we got the parts, now we need to put it all together, and that's the hard part. Don't let all the bodywork fool you. This chassis still as bare gets, but I think we have a pretty solid plan of attack. While you normally lay down the entire electrical system first, we're gonna do it a bit different. We're gonna take our engine and all of our suspension, put that in the car first, and then wire it all up. The idea is that when we go to install this mess of a wiring harness that was balled up in the back of the Demon 170, it'll give us some kind of direction. First order of business is getting this engine ready to go in the car. And unfortunately, it has sustained a little bit of damage after being drugged from the chop shop to the police impound to Copart, then ultimately down here to our shop. Frankly though, after reading the police report, we are beyond lucky that we even have an engine for this thing. We'll talk all about it in a little bit, but apparently when the thieves got busted, they had a U-Haul backed up in the driveway and were actively loading parts from this car into it. The first bit of damage, it's not much of a surprise in the coil packs. These things can crack and break simply from being too harsh when you're unplugging them, so I guess it's to be expected that they're going to sustain some kind of damage when this engine's been rolled over on its lid. Now, some of them, they just have cosmetic chips like that, but on others, the connectors are either bashed in or completely broken off like this one. The coil packs, it's no big deal. We got plenty of them sitting around from the other builds, so we'll swap them out, no harm, no foul. But while we're in here, we got to take care of one of the other things that's been causing these Demon 170s to blow up left and right. Either Dodge or Champion royally screwed up on these factory spark plugs in that they're gap too loose. And what I mean by that is the electrode in the center of the spark plug is too far away from the actual tip of the plug. Frankly, on a normal engine, it wouldn't matter at all. But on an engine that makes 1,000 horsepower straight from the factory, it definitely matters. And it is wild to me that they let this thing leave like this. But either way, outside of a few cracked connectors and chafed wires we had to fix up, I'm not finding much functional damage on this engine other than this front accessory drive with the broken tensioner, a cracked pulley, but all that stuff's simple bolt-on parts, so it seems at least so far we've really lucked out on this thing. There are, however, quite a few parts that are just straight up missing off this engine. For whatever reason, don't ask me why, they decided to take the intercooler coolant temperature sensor that I definitely can't get back in. There we go. Either way, it's the exact same as the coolant temperature, the oil temperature sensor off pretty much every Mopar, so we jacked the Scat Pack one and called it a day. The only other damage that I'm really worried about on this engine is this fuel rail. This line is supposed to come straight off, and clearly it ain't.
Damn.
That's not necessarily ideal, but I do think we have a chance to fix it. I was concerned that it was going to be kinked at a sharp angle. In that case, it's pretty much trashed. But being that this is such a gradual curve, I kind of like our chances fixing it. Now, if it was any other fuel rail, we just replace it. But this is Demon 170 specific, being that it has a provision for the ethanol content sensor in the back of it. So, the way we're going to go about trying to fix this is putting the stock cut fuel line back on and giving it.
I was thinking it could be that simple, but...
Is it fixed or is extra bent now?
Me, 2 seconds, I'll let you know.
Exactly how you mess something up.
The actual nipple itself is straight. The new line we're going to be running on it goes all the way back to the tank, as long as this fits. Oh, that's really nice and tight. I think we're going to go for it. It's something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on when we do our first start, though.
Once we finished a race, we're immediately reviewing animations,
Photography,
graphics,
documents.
There's just a couple more things we have to take care of before we can drop this down on the subframe, slap it. I was not trying to drop the hardware into the nasty oil pan. Anyway, where was I here? There's a couple more things we have to do before we can put it in the car. Basically, numero uno, this oil pan. There we go. Ugh. Oh yeah, beautiful. Our engine oil pan's pretty heavy duty cast aluminum, so even though it got drug around a good bit, survived.
That's crazy.
Just a few.
I never knew Hellcats got the SRT Hellcat under there.
Gouges.
And it's funny,
But our transmission oil pan, this is really thin sheet, and it got dented in heavy. It's really nothing catastrophic, and if we're on a different car, I might not even worry about it, but the way these transmissions are designed is they have a filter that sits right up against this oil pan, and if it got crushed in the wrong place, it could completely block this pickup, and if that happens, we're gonna have a very non-functional transmission. As usual, Big Hammer gets the job done. Now, while we knew how we're going to fix this, one thing I didn't anticipate is that the filter itself was going to be crushed in. And unlike our oil pan, I don't feel comfortable fixing that. We're going to have to replace it. But we're not going to let it slow us down. We'll toss the oil pan back on to make sure we don't get any dirt in this beautiful 61-mile transmission. And then we'll replace the filter in a couple days when it shows up in the mail with the drivetrain already in the car. While we didn't technically finish the job there, I'm not going to sweat it because this next part's a little more fun to deal with oil pans anyway. These guys are Stainless Works 2-inch headers. Not only are they significantly lighter and more visually appealing than the stock manifolds, they're of course going to let us make a little extra power too. These are the same exact headers I ran on the OG Demon. They haven't led me astray there, so I figure why not go for them again. I do have to say that it is awesome to be working on something with only 61 miles on it. We get to reuse the factory gasket, all the bolts are going in fine. This doesn't usually happen here. We are fully dressed, got our fancy new headers on, and now sit it down on the subframe and try to get it up in the car.
Is the door supposed to shake when you do that?
Yeah, that is fucking weird, right? That's weird. For reference, if you haven't used one of these fancy things before, in a warehouse, they have beams up top, you can put a hoist. It's great for things like this, but it turns out when you have something this heavy on it, it shakes the building. It's probably not right, but these engines are really heavy. Yep, you got it. There we go. All right.
It's almost destroyed the building, but
yeah, remember it was brought down the roof on us, but you know, no problem. That's roughly, more or less, right? This is 10 times more nerve-wracking than any car I've put an engine in before. This is the only one where we have a freshly painted, beautiful engine bay, and now have to put an engine into it. What we're trying to match up here is to get this bolt, which goes through the subframe, to go into this hole. So it looks like we gotta bring this about an inch forward. We're in. We are in. Now we just gotta get this transmission mount in, and we can take a breath and call it installed. Come on. I know in the grand scheme of things, this really isn't that big of a deal.
God. With that being such a low mileage motor and that fresh paint job with that pink in there, I ain't gonna lie. I am not gonna lie. It ain't together yet, but that's the hardest demon I ever seen.
It's not like we had any questions of whether this engine was going to fit or not, but it still somehow feels like a big deal. Now, while we're on a roll here, might as well go ahead and throw in this rear subframe and differential as well.
I'm gonna take this plate upstairs right quick.
Realistically, this should be even easier than the front. There's really only a few changes we have to make. Number one is these rear struts. The ones that came with the Demon 170, they were all kinds of bent up from getting thrown around at the salvage auction. We sourced a set off a Hellcat. They're not nearly as low mileage, but I think they'll do for now.
Imagine putting this in on airbags. That would be kind of cool.
Don't.
What?
Don't even start. The only other damaged part we have to replace here is this parking brake cable, which the fine gentlemen who stole this car were nice enough to cut for us. But I've already taken one out of the scat pack, so it's a direct bolt-on replacement, not really that big of a deal. Last order of business on the rear is to replace something that was missing entirely in these rear springs. Now to be fair, these just sit in there, they're not attached in any way, shape, or form, so it's not really that much of a surprise that they got lost. Man, if we pretend for just a second that we don't know what the inside of this car looks like, from underneath it almost looks like a regular old Hellcat or Demon that's just, you know, in for service or something. Not that we had any doubts about the straightness of this chassis or the subframe, but after it all got tossed around, it's nice to see that everything bolted together just buttery smooth. Our only real issue is how dirty everything is. Normally, installing lines like this, no problem. But if you remember how the lines that came out of this Demon 170 actually came out of it, it's a problem. It's a little bit of a problem. This is just one of the parts about outfitting a completely bare chassis that just isn't a great time. Like, do these random lines go over or under these brake lines? It's hard to tell from the jump, but once you get everything assembled and realize that it doesn't fit, it could be a 2-hour backtrack to try to fix it if we got it wrong. Now our next order of business here is our fuel tank, and I know that sounds super straightforward, but we are truly flying blind on this. Of all the parts we got with that blue Demon 170, we didn't get anything from the fuel system. Not a tank, not a pump, no lines. That line we test fit on the rail earlier and have since put up into the car, along with this piece that goes from that up onto the tank, that's from a Hellcat Red Eye. The actual fuel tank that we're using, this is out of a plain Jane Hellcat, and while we know it'll fit the chassis, it'll all bolt in the car fine, I have no clue how this is all going to integrate with the factory Demon 170 stuff we're using up front. I do honestly think that along with the wiring, getting all this factory Demon 170 fuel stuff to work is probably going to be one of the more challenging parts of this build. But even if we can't source factory Demon 170 fuel tank parts like the fuel pump, we can always go the aftermarket route like we did on my other Demon, so at least there's a plan B. Fuel tank, check. Our brake lines, our emission lines, our fuel lines, that's a check. We can run fluid from the front of the car all the way to the back of the car, but now we need to make sure we can run power from the front of the car to the back of the car. And to do that, we get to install what, quite honestly, might be one of the nicest parts I've ever put on a car, period. This gem's a carbon fiber Demon 170 specific drive shaft by Ripatoon. I mean, it's got billet U-joints, the whole 9 yards. It's far and away the nicest shaft I've ever seen. After our factory drive shaft got drug around from place to place, it had really, you know, took a beating. By the time it made it here, it was pretty much trash. So especially considering the stock drive shafts are $4,000 to buy, this was kind of a no-brainer considering it was a couple $100 less than that, and it's carbon fiber. Supposedly, Demon 170 drive shafts are breaking straight from the factory too, so while I'm not thrilled to have spent a ton of money on a drive shaft right off the jump, I suppose it's preventative maintenance, or we'll justify it that way at least. Now we might be putting the cart before the horse just a little bit. There's really no reason why we can't wiggle this exhaust on here, starting with a nice set of high flow cats, followed by these S.
Alright. Hold on.
I switch slide on way too smooth. God, that's beautiful. And if you've ever worked with slip joints, you know they go on nice and flawless like this one time and one time only, and after that they're an absolute freaking nightmare. Now for the big...
Wait, Subway did what?
Made it easy to build a $6.99 meal deal with any 6-inch sub.
As you may have heard, this year there are 4 incredible new iPhones.
Now for the big and dirty and not so new parts. A factory exhaust, which is off a Hellcat, a certain gray Hellcat that we no longer need an exhaust for. Let's see how it all fits up. I'm gonna push up, you try to get that in. There we go.
Bravo!
I'll send you a bill.
We can go ahead and plug in our exhaust module, and these have like little flaps in here. I think the idea is that when you go wide open throttle, they completely open, it gets a little bit louder, but somehow.
For those of you who don't know, if you have a Mopar or any gonna say any.
It's in here. I think the
Mopar that has these bitches are gonna break. Active exhaust valves, they're gonna break. The check engine light is gonna be on. There's ways to fix it, but you're gonna have to.
Is that when you go wide open throttle, they completely open, it gets a little bit louder, but somehow keeps it just a bit quieter and idle. One other thing this exhaust does is moves the secondary oxygen sensors like 2 feet back. So we have these extension harnesses that we gotta plug in that'll let us get back up here to the O2 sensor connection, which is all the way up here on the bell housing. With that, we've got a car that, at least from a drivetrain standpoint, is, dare I say, somewhat complete. But now we have to make it all function together, and this is far and away going to be the hardest part of this build. Not only that, but there's some questions that we just don't have answers for yet. On the last Demon build, getting all the electronics to work properly, getting the modules to interface, it was an absolute nightmare, to the point where I had to buy a 2018 Hellcat and strip the entire electrical system out of it.
He's trying to make his Demon a manual, so he had to buy a 2018 manual Hellcat just to get the electrical system.
Just to get the car running. This time though, rather than repurposing things from other cars, I bought all the modules brand new from the dealer. Our engine computer, our security module, our body control module, even the key fobs, which, yes, are Demon 170 specific. Problem is, there's still no dealers out there that have coded a Demon 170 from scratch, so once again, we're in uncharted territory here. And then there's also the fact that this massive ball of wiring harness, yeah, we might as well just dump it out. All this stuff sat outside for who knows how long. I don't know what's corroded, I don't know what's damaged, I don't know what's just straight missing. The only thing I do know is there's only one way to find out. We got our main rear chassis harness laid. Now we'll run our big battery cable up to the front of the car. And I do have to say, this all seems just very repetitive and redundant after having done this so many times on the last Demon. And if it's boring for me to do, I can only imagine it's boring for you guys to watch. So why don't we keep it fun? I guess this is about the time that we'll throw on the theoretical detective hat and monocle and tell a story of how the OG Demon 170 got stolen. Thanks to the good old Freedom of Information Act, we got the entire police report and know the full story, and it is freaking wild. Now, since day one, essentially, I've known who owned the original Demon 170 because of the paperwork that came with the car from Copart, but out of respect for their privacy, we're obviously not going to name them. It was, however, someone very high up at Dodge's parent company, Stellantis, in Canada, which explains how they got car number 32 and explains why it was a VIP build on the window sticker. According to the police report, it was stolen when the owner's son accidentally left the garage door open one night. And well, if you do that with a Mopar in Detroit and leave it unlocked, it's gone. Just write it off, it is done. They never heard the car start, so presumably they pulled the manual park release cable and just pushed it out of the garage to keep things quiet. And speaking of, we have to install a new one because they cut ours when they chopped it up. Now, the whole purpose of having this shift release is that so if your shifter fails or your car doesn't have power, you can still move it. You can get it into neutral, to drag the car around, to tow it, whatever you need to do. Unfortunately, it's also became a really easy way for people to steal these cars. You break a window, pull this, the car is basically gone. As for the theft of the car, though, that's pretty much it. They have.
So do all Mopars start, or Chargers, Challengers start with this? My, like 2C, 3C, a couple of my cars have started with that. That's funny.
Cameras, they didn't catch anything. The Demon, and of course, it's yellow lip.
Yellow, there are no other significant van or vehicle insured by.
Didn't catch anything. The Demon, and of course, its yellow lip guards just disappeared. Or at least it disappeared until someone got tired of their neighbors making noise, apparently. Detroit police got a call about a car being chopped up out back of a house, which, fun fact, is a block over from Eminem's childhood home. And when they got there, I mean, if you could imagine and draw up what a chop shop bust would look like, it was exactly that. Upon arrival to the location, I observed an unknown male running from in front of the location to the
Unknown black male.
I began walking up the driveway when an unknown male came walking from the backyard of the location. The unknown male seen me and dropped a sawzall. Walking from
Sawzall ran back to the backyard, followed him, and observed officer laying on the vehicle. Unknown black male jumped the fence and proceeded north. I observed the door panel, wiring, seats, and red. Stripped vehicle garage 20. Van confirmed stolen per lien. There was a U-Haul in the driveway location with back doors open with the door in the rear of it. Offenders 1 and 2 detained while cats made
the backyard of the location. The unknown male seen me and dropped a sawzall.
He knew he was cooked. Cause you know he on some shit.
He ran to the backyard, past 2 other people. They started hopping fences and running, though they all did get caught eventually. But once the police got to the backyard, that is where they found the Demon 170. Unfortunately cut up and actively being loaded into a U-Haul. Now, thanks to Detective Turner of Detroit's Auto Theft Task Force, we have pictures of all this. And it's really just a sad sight. It is crazy to me that they didn't get caught sooner. All the houses are so...
That's the gray one right there.
It is...
That's the gray one he had to buy to put the last demon together. So essentially it has no wiring in it, but it's got everything.
Crazy to me that they didn't get caught sooner. All the houses are so tightly packed together that everyone has to know what you're doing. I mean, out front, they had a Suburban with Chrysler 300 parts that were stolen. It was legitimately a full-blown chop shop in a residential area. But either way, Detroit police recovered all the parts that were left.
You shouldn't have a chop shop.
Drug them to their impound lot. That's
Shouldn't have a chop shop.
But
in the
either way,
area.
Detroit police recovered all the parts that were left and drug them to their impound lot. That's where insurance would have cut a check for it and then ultimately sent it off to Copart to be auctioned off to try to recoup what they owe, which of course is where I bought it. Normally, it's about where the story would end, but not this time, because a couple days after the first video went live, I got a wild message on Instagram. Someone messaged me asking me if I wanted to buy parts from
Interesting. Can send pics of it all together. I'll tell you how.
Demon 170. Obviously, I wrote it off as a joke, just somebody being dumb. Turns out, it was real. It was very real, and they could prove it. They sent me pictures of the Demon 170 before it got cut up. He sent me his number. Obviously, I called him, and for God knows what reason, he wanted to talk a lot. Now, apparently, the way this all works is the group who actually steals these cars aren't the ones that part them out. They'll take a Hellcat,
I got more pics of it and a video of it running. I think there are still seats and maybe other 170. How was you told it was taken? I'm curious on the part now. It was sold for $12K without the parts you're missing. That was the first part spool. It was going to be a 300 swap build. I bet, there is a Demon. Same 300 swap that was built at the same time this happened. It was finished and sold currently for sale now in Louisiana, $75,000. I think he wants for it. I got more pics and video. Damn, if you get a second, take the rear fuse box and take it apart, top from bottom. See if there's anything extra in there. There's always a tracker installed so it can be taken back after it's sold. Oh, wow.
let it be known.
Wow. Okay.
Whatever medium, I have no clue, that they have a stolen Hellcat, and people will essentially bid on it, offer money for it, and then they'll take the chance, assuming they can part it out for more money, you know, if they don't get caught in their backyard. The way he made it out was the person I spoke to was just some sort of associate of the people who actually do this.
Yeah,
he was able to show.
He's not the one of the ones, but he want to snitch. He want to tell it all. I'll ask him how he took it then. I don't want to ask or know if he had done something to someone to get it. That's the part of things I don't like or want to know. I'll ask him if he would talk with you if you want. He's the real deal, and it's mind-blowing to see the numbers of the Mopars he had per week and from all over a lot of them was coming from
the trackers they use, and really just bragged about, unfortunately, how many cars that they steal. Now, I think it goes without saying that this is a very odd position to be in, talking with people who are involved in the world of stealing cars, especially when none of us support that. But in the interest of trying to find the whole story behind this car, it's just kind of where we found ourselves. I even tried to get in touch with the guy who's actually stealing these things.
So you already know what the deal is. The guy that took it, him and I last night, yeah, he knows you have it like I showed you. So he follows you also. I'll talk with him tonight and shoot you a text to let you know if he'll be. It would be a FaceTime call. His camera would probably be off. It would want to see and no one is around you. I think that's fair. Get you the full story firsthand. Yeah, sounds good. He's going to think about it, but seats and rims are the only things missing, he said.
Just to get a 100% complete story for you guys, but nothing really ever came of it, presumably because I said whatever he told me was going to end up in this video. At the end of the day, though, no parts were ever offered for sale. The guy I was speaking to never even claimed to have them. Oh, and one other small bit of information. I asked him how they're able to find this many cars, how they're able to steal them at this rate, and he simply replied with a picture of a t-shirt from Dodge's Brampton assembly plant. Take that for what it's worth. Now, the picture,
Brampton assembly plant.
a t-shirt from Dodge's Brampton assembly plant. So take that for what it's worth.
Basically, if you're not picking up on that, he asked how they're able to steal the cars. He sent the shirt that they wear at work. So the people that work there, yeah.
Now, on a far brighter note, we've basically got this entire engine bay wired, and even though all this stuff got drug around for who knows how long, I didn't find a single broken connector or damaged wire on the harness itself, which means we can finally move on to this dashboard and try to get some life going here.
In the bumper.
Don't do that. Now, for as well as the rest of this has went, I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to go quite so smooth. On our engine bay harness, and on our rear harness, I got pretty optimistic once I saw that there was really no severe damage. There's a couple split wires, a few cracked connectors, but it was all a super easy fix. That, however, is obviously not the same for this dash harness. Now, what I think this can be attributed to is the fact that those wiring harnesses were left, they were balled up, sure they got drug around, but they weren't attached to some 100-pound dashboard. I think being that this got dumped around, people were probably struggling with it a lot more, a lot of these connectors got severely damaged. You can really see how badly this thing was handled because the metal dashbar that sits behind the actual dashboard, all the mounts for this are bent up. This side one's completely cocked. These are supposed to be flat. They mount to the chassis of the car. They're in 8 different directions. So if that metal bar got this jacked up, the harness, it really stood no chance. Now, normally I just swap out to a different dash harness, call it a day. But given that these are so new, you can't order this exact dash harness from Dodge, and that's a problem. I don't want to risk putting a different dash harness in it and just hoping it works, so we're going to have to repair this one. That's really our only option. And even outside of the wiring, the dashboard itself, while a lot of the panels, the gauge cluster, that carbon fiber trim, that all survived. This dash, it's basically just trash. This entire backside's all broken out where the defroster vent clips in. We got a really nice gouge on the top of it. Even the center console mounts are all jacked up. There's pretty much no saving this, so our only option was to get a new OEM dash. The idea here is we're going to outfit our new dash to be one giant assembly, just like this one, except, you know, not all jacked up.
Gotta figure out a way to get that demon.
Welcome to Maison Perrier. Feel elevated. Maison Perrier.
I went from being a 29-year-old newlywed to a 29-year-old cancer patient. I was
Now, to give us some kind of guidance. Some kind of guidance. To give us some kind of guidance on what we're doing assembling the dashboard in the pink car, we're going to take the dash out of this. That's flawless execution, Tim.
Dude ass that just walked through there. Hey, he cold at every
Right through the car. Perfection.
Yeah. Tim,
I mean, the whole That's
Right.
We're gonna take the dash out of this. That's flawless execution, Tim. Right through the car, perfection. I mean, the whole car falling off the cart thing wasn't really great, but otherwise, not too bad. One other thing we're gonna be able to do with this dashboard is, even though I'm sure the dash harnesses themselves are different, so we're not gonna use the entire harness, those couple main connectors that were broken on the Demon 170, they were identical in this harness, so we snipped them right off, and old wiring master Tim here's got them, what, like halfway on?
Yeah, swapping over wire by wire. Pairing the ones that are broken and, you know, hopefully it all works.
So that's the blue connector, correct?
Yes. So we went from this hunk of trash and this broken connector to
Minty Fresh.
Minty Fresh.
Minty Fresh Scat Pack parts.
Not bad.
Gets the job done.
Yep.
Now this one, the brown one that was completely smashed to bits, this was proving a little more difficult, mainly because we don't know where all these wires go in the connector.
So, this is the 170 connector, and this is the connector we have off the dash. The weird thing is that they don't even have the same number of wires from car to car. So I'm having to move some wires around, in addition to some wires match the right color, and other wires are completely different shade of color.
And the problem here is there's no pinout available for a 23 Demon 170. Doesn't exist.
Not even the slightest.
Trial and error. While Tim's trial and erroring away, we're going to go ahead and assemble our new dashboard. Plan here, as long as we don't find any damage, which we shouldn't, is to use the dash bar and the steering column out of the Scat Pack, the wiring and modules out of the 170, and combine it all with our new dash skin. I didn't really realize the scale of this until we got this dash out of the car, but if you remember, a tree fell in that Scat Pack. The entire windshield just bust out of it. There is so much glass in this thing that I guess we're gonna have to spray it, otherwise when we turn the HVAC on, it's gonna be coming out of the vents. First order of business, of course, snake our wiring harness through here, which I thought was going to be a complete pain, but it turns out they put so many different clips and whatnot on this that it's really just not that bad. We've got just a few small and unimportant parts, like the airbag that we have to transfer over from the old dash skin to our new one. Got a couple little modules back here. Now that we got that outfitted, we can extremely carefully put this new dash skin on. Now we get to install all the cool stuff. Gauge cluster. Boom. This freaking beautiful carbon fiber dash panel. I know we talked about exactly how much this cost in the first video. I can't remember the exact number, but in case you weren't here for it, it's something like $1,800, $2,000. It's absurd. The only, and I truly mean only flaw in this thing, is that little gouge right there. It's probably gonna drive me nuts if I'm being honest, but it's certainly not worth paying the price for a new one, so we're just gonna rock with it. And now the final and clearly the most important piece, our serial numbered Demon vent cover that I am trying to very carefully get out of here. Perfect. All right. Suppose we're about done with this thing. Add it to the old.
It's like that first Demon build was practice. You know what I'm saying? They went through a lot of stuff, messed it up. They got a Demon 170
graveyard build over here.
Good thing they went through the practice.
That is quite impressive, right? That's what has went into making this a complete dash. Give her a nice little polish there. Good as new. I mean, it is new, so I guess that checks out. You ready, Fernando?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that did not go nearly as smooth as I wanted at all.
I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, that is not good. Yeah, that was supposed to be the nice sentimental shot of me sliding the Demon badge back in for the first time. Everything would be right in the world, and I absolutely and utterly blew it. So, well, it's in. Trust me, I'm well aware it's just a dashboard. But for some reason, I am far too hyped to have this thing done and ready to go in the car. Maybe it's because half this stuff was rolling around Copart for so long. I thought it was all going to be full of water. I didn't think any of it was going to work. So to get away with doing a little bit of wiring and installing a new dash skin to have a complete dash ready to go in the car, it's a massive win. Now to install our nice new dashboard, we got to get the car off the lift so we can actually open the doors. Could we sneak the dashboard in here? Probably, but considering this is the first time in my life I've had a fresh new paint job, I'm in no hurry to try to wrestle that heavy dash in here and risk scratching something. So we got to get the car off the lift, and we have basically two options on how we can do that. One, we can load the car back onto a cart and push it off, or option number two, we can install our fancy new wheels, and I think the choice is pretty clear here, right?
Think about the best night.
If you watched the first video, you know that the Demon 170 originally came with the carbon fiber wheel option, but they're so incredibly expensive. To buy them new, it's like $50,000, but they're so... You know that the Demon 170 originally came...
This is 12,000.
Fiber wheel option, but they're so incredibly expensive. To buy them new, it's like $50,000. Even used sets are fetching like 30 grand. As cool as it would have been to put carbon fiber wheels back on this car, it just wasn't even close to being in the budget. So we went with these, a factory aluminum set that were like 15% of the price of the carbon ones. Are they a little bit heavier? Of course, but there are some positives here outside of just the cost. And no, this isn't just a coping mechanism. We plan on truly, and I mean truly, putting this car through the paces. And as you might imagine, we're going to be going through a ton of tires. Mounting tires on these aluminum wheels, no problem. Mounting tires on almost $50,000 carbon fiber wheels, yeah, that's a different story. Frankly, I don't want any part of that. As for where the original carbon fiber wheels off the Demon 170 ended up, I guess we'll never know them. Sure, some janky cars probably rolling around Detroit right now on $50,000 wheels, and they probably paid like $6 for them.
Is it me? Or this is like truck lug nuts?
I mean, they look terrible. I don't think there's any getting around that. These are the lug nuts off the Scat Pack, and they don't match these wheels at all. We're gonna have to source some kind of like charcoal lug nut. I mean, even outside of the lug nuts, we got a lot of work to do on the cosmetic front. We need to source center casts. We need to also send our brakes out to be powder coated, as most of them are still really gouged up. But that is a problem for another day. Right now, I am just jacked to see what this car looks like on the ground with wheels on it.
Man.
It's such a slow ride down when you're waiting to see new wheels. It takes 10 times longer, I swear it's a thing. I forgot to tighten something. Okay. Well, it sits awfully high at the moment.
It looks like 4x4 right now.
It does, yeah. Yeah, we accidentally put Trackhawk shocks on it, sorry. So we're gonna have to take a page out of the Thieves playbook here and use the whole park release trick.
Nah.
Yeah, it didn't fix it at all. So we're not at all even close to full weight. We were at the radiator fluids, any of the interior. This probably would have looked cooler and much more dramatic if we were, you know, at a proper ride height. But the color scheme looks freaking awesome. Pretty much the last thing we have to do before we can put our dashboard in is throw our HVAC control box in. We'll also, just because it's a lot easier to do with the dash out of the car, install our new BCM.
Look like you're struggling to me.
I'm not struggling. We need to get this shaft through the hole, and this is where it becomes a bit hard. Now, Fernando.
No.
I'm just gonna say it because it's, you know, we don't have much time here. We can't dance around our words. I need you to come grab the shaft.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, you pick it up. You got it in the hole. All right.
Wow.
We in?
Yeah.
All right.
I really can see the comments coming.
What comments?
What
comments?
We're
like so close, but there's something stopping from pushing it all the way in. I can't tell it's this right here. Yep. It was that right there. Now we can toss our center console in. And this isn't necessarily going to be a permanent install because we have to take it back out to do the carpet and all that fun stuff. Oh yeah. It really does, like, it almost looks like a complete car now, doesn't it, Fernando?
100%.
This feels weird. It really does feel weird. Oh, perfect. The final thing we need to do is get power from the front harness to the rear harness, and then we can try to key it on and see what happens. Our battery cables will pass through our fender well here with this little junction box that we, of course, have to get back in the car to install. This is one of those things that would have been very, very wise to do before we put the dash in. All right, one side done. And that looks like two sides down to me.
We're good to go.
We're good here?
Yep.
Do suppose this is probably the time that we should just temper our expectations. As much as I would love to fire this thing up and have it run, that's clearly not going to happen. I'm hopeful that we can see some lights. If we see some lights, I'll be happy. If I'm being honest though, that might even be too much to ask. Keep in mind, none of these modules are programmed. We have to get the car this far before we can even try to convince a dealer to program it. So I have no clue what's going to happen here. We just got to go for it and try. Let's see, we'll connect the terminal here. I'm nervous. I'm nervous, guys. Oh!
That's smart.
We got. Oh, okay, we got power-ish.
Dang, okay. We got power.
If you're living with severe alopecia areata,
They got power-ish.
Yeah, that ain't right. That's not right at all.
What'd it say? Press clutch pedal and... It's not a manual.
Yeah, that ain't right. That's not right at all. There was never a clutch pedal in this car. I'm guessing that's because the modules aren't programmed, maybe. So theoretically, if we hit this, yeah, the key's not going to do anything. Do we try to hit the power button? Just see what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Nothing.
You gotta push the brake, man. Oh, no, you would at least put it in run.
Well, I guess that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get headlights working. It's on?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope.
Maybe the stalk needs to be plugged in. Let's see if I can high beam somebody.
Oh, yes.
We got it?
Yes.
Wait, so the rings come on.
But no, the headlights.
Yeah, that's not actually a high beam, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just, so when you hit the high beam, the ring lights come on.
Sounds like
That's weird.
It doesn't make sense.
That's a programming problem.
The lights themselves don't work, but if you use the high beam button, something works. So theoretically, if you hit the brakes,
Brakes work.
okay. We don't have tail lights. We don't have any functioning lights except the brakes back here. But again, it's something, I'll take it. On the inside, I guess, as expected, there's not really much going on. We can move this switch and it does dim the cluster. The center console, the shifter, all that stuff seems to work and light up as it should. I guess this is the extent of the life we have in this car for right now. Now guys, stick with me for just a second here. It is not an ad, I promise you. As the builds here have got more complex and as the videos have got longer, and as I've tried at least to keep the quality high and pack more into every single video, they've got infinitely longer for me to film and edit. So many of the videos I've been posting recently have been like 3 or 4 weeks worth of work compacted down into a 30 or 40 minute video. And while I truly am, and I hope you guys are too, happy with the quality of these videos because of just how much we are able to pack into them, there's so much more that I want to share with you guys that's just not a fit for these style videos. So I decided to make another channel for exactly that reason. I can keep you guys updated on what's going on in between the videos on this channel. We can just have a good freaking time and talk about what's going on in the shop, and we can talk about stuff like, you know, the total dyno we just rebuilt for the shop. You guys know that I never hit you with all that typical YouTube BS, like, you know, like and subscribe, smash that like button or whatever it is, but just this one time, I'm gonna ask for a favor. I have a link to the new channel down in the comments and in the description. If you wanna come along for the ride, head on over, hit subscribe so we can try to get this thing off the ground. And truly, I appreciate every one of you guys more than you can possibly imagine, and I am really, really excited to be able to share more of what I do on a daily basis with every one of you. Now, back to the Demon for just a second. This, unfortunately, is where the, quote, easy work is pretty much over. Now the next step is really going to be starting this thing and getting it to run and drive, and that is where we still have all those question marks. We need to find a dealer that's willing to program this thing, that thinks they can do it, and hopefully not have it take half a year like the last one. Yeah, let's hope that I see you guys back with this car sometime soon. It's very important to point out
Hey, WVid, man.
that this is easily the heaviest piece of crap engine we've ever had on this hoist. Also very important to point out that he installed this thing. So, yellow lip guards, just a... Cut, buddy. What's wrong?
I'm hungry.
Tired?
You're hungry.
Yeah, I gotta subscribe to that other channel though, man. Speaking of other channels, man, y'all know this is not the main channel. Follow my main channel. No, wait. I'm tweaking. This is my main channel. I mean, this is not my reaction channel. I have a reaction channel. It is Killer Cam Live. It should be in the description. Subscribe over there. If you don't even watch nothing, subscribe, because I need 50 subscribers so I can go live. So at least subscribe. If you made it this far in this video, subscribe to the Killer Cam Live channel. I do a lot more reactions of the YouTube stuff. And not, hold on, I gotta handle something.